Hey everybody, it's Eric Balance coming to you with the Resilient Minds podcast, where I feature beautiful entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and experts in their field, where they help us discover their X factor, their experience of life, only to discover how they were able to accomplish and find out their Y factor, their big why, their purpose in life. So join me as we get to discover the beauty of our minds and how can we really continue to go after the biggest and most wildest dreams while we continue to pursue and manifest our greatest intelligence that comes from the heart. Also, if you haven't, go check out the new alignment course that I've created at www.ericbalance.com/alignment, ALIGNMENT. See you on the show. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Resilient Minds podcast. I'm super grateful, excited to have Vesa here. So for those of you that may not know Vesa, he's a friend that I met at the first time I was in Dubai. He's an amazing digital artist, but it's not just a digital artist. Like, this is like super, he's been in the industry for close to 15 years, hey Vesa, or longer?
15 years, yeah, no. This month, 15 years.
Yeah. And like really brings art to life, and he's really launching a huge movement, not just in the digital world, but in the crypto world, in the NFT world. He's delivered, beautiful art pieces on cars. He's adding value at different conferences, and he's really bringing in a new niche, a new industry into the field. And so I just want to really, first of all, thank you, brother, for coming on. And second of all, say, I love what you're up to. I love what you're doing, and I love the creativity.
Same, bro. And I really appreciate it. I know you've had a bunch of very prestigious, cool guests, and I'm honored that you would include me as one of them. And I've been looking forward to this chat for the, I think the 2-3 weeks ago that we already agreed to do it. So I'm like, it keeps popping up. It's like, yeah, that's going to be a cool chat. So very excited about it. I'm apologize to people in advance because I'm at a conference space, which is there's an Algorand conference that is opening here, the Souk Medinat. So it's not, I'm not at home comfort like you are at the moment. So if there's any background noise, it's because of that. But this is the most quiet spot that I could find here thus far, and it's pretty okay, I think.
No worries, bro. I'm grateful that you can take the time, because I think, there's always, especially being in Dubai, man, there's so many things happening all the time. I know that this for me was like always the case when I was there. So I really appreciate the time. But bro, I just wanted to get right into it with you, and really, I know that you've been, learning about art, and my father, I don't know if I told you this actually. My father is a curator, an art gallery here in Edmonton. And so I've been around art all my life, really been fascinated with it, and the way that it like really speaks to me and communicates with me, because it's an amazing form of communication. What for you really spoke to why art, or this way that you like to express yourself? What got you really curious about it or started about it?
I think it was just in me ever since the beginning. It wasn't first, it was audio before it was visual. I mean, I turned my parents' pots and pans into a drum kit with these wooden spatulas when I was 5, and there was just this rhythm, there was this thing that was coming through me, and I guess I connected into something with that. And then a bunch of different things happened. Not all of it, what I would say, is entirely constructive for a young man's sort of worldview to be forming, and the sense of security and those kinds of things. And I suppose earning those dues of kind of overcoming whatever trauma and bad things, it's the kintsugi principle actually that kind of condenses everything that I do, which is that there's this old Japanese tradition where that sometimes when you break a bowl or a cup or something like that, you put it back together with gold and silver lacquer, and then it's considered more beautiful because it has a story, it's been broken, and it's been put back together with love. So, and essentially, I think how a good human being is crafted is that we all come into the world somewhat innocent, with different temperaments and all that kind of stuff, but then at some point, life's difficulties and whatever happens to you, they start to come, and they keep coming, and some people become bitter, and they can't really handle it, and there's all these different kinds of traps that you can really get into that then effectively don't make you into the best version of yourself. And I think this is what really resonates with me about your podcast, and the purpose of this chat as well, the resilience, is that in order for me to have been a digital artist without oil originals for 15 years and supporting myself and now my family and things like that, first and foremost, it's been 99% sweat equity and resilience in order for that to happen. And now, of course, in the crypto art space and kind of being early into NFTs and whatever, that kind of thing, it's helped it tremendously along, but I'm still not in the millionaire category of things. So it's not financially still, even at this point, that comfortable, but the network of people that I have around me and the people that I get to build with is so incredible. And I think most of those things have really happened because the difficulties and the resilience crafted and took a lot of the fat out of the system. It just burns the dead wood from around you in order for me to be more straightforward, more self-reflective, more understanding what it is that other people want and what it is that I'm here to contribute, as opposed to just something that I express myself and whatever, and then people buy it and it's a nice thing and whatever. That's whatever, that all of the whatever is the nice bonus out of this from attention and all those kinds of things, they're really secondary after you realize how difficult the journey has been to come out of my own shell in order to understand what it is that I'm here for and what I can do for other people in the process.
Wow, man. I think that what you said, a big part of what you said, and something that I really caught that really resonates is, you're not just expressing yourself, you're paying attention to what people really want. You're listening to what really they need. And you're also applying this expression to something that is really changing the people around you, the industry around you. And as a result, you're also bringing a nuance, a very unique nuance to the space. And so I think this is something that expresses the personal development, right, that you've been on inside on the internal journey. And it then, as a result, allows one to adapt. Because, I know when it comes to the path of, expression, there's a lot of things that the outside world is trying to dictate to suppress. But it's beautiful that you're allowing your expression to also be created through your own heart space, but also then listening how you can tweak it so that people are seeing it in the way that it's supposed to be delivered through this expression.
Well, no, that totally, and you understand it beautifully. If I may add to that, there's a certain amount, like ever since a kid, I was drawn to pyramids, and I was seeking those kinds of artists who were somehow connected to that realm. And I eventually traveled to Egypt and Mexico, and I was quite obsessed about what these temples and ancient structures, why they were aligned with the true north. What did they already know, and what did that have to do with the different kind of constellations, and what do these structures know, and why were they pointing to the sky? And there's actually, the Graham Hancock series now on Netflix, the Ancient Apocalypse. If you haven't watched it yet, I thoroughly recommend it. As part of the art, I got to make friends with John Anthony West, who's one of these renegade Egyptologists, and I got to body paint his daughter and become friends because I was also, in my previous life, I was a filmmaker, and I made these documentary films exploring all of these kinds of themes. And long and the short of it, what I'm trying to say is that there's a cosmos that has certain laws, and it has a certain structure that we've known as civilizations for a long time already. And to that, I'm a forever an apprentice, and kind of understanding how to infuse already what God has made into something of value that transmits into art that doesn't have to always be explained. You can just be in the presence of it, and that something that is true about the world is in that artwork. And that's one way to infuse. But then the other thing is that if you've done the internal work in order to get out of your own way when something comes through you that is not necessarily constructed or numerology kind of thing, or your ego, or the different kinds of aspects that we need as human beings. And I've learned not to negate them. They're absolutely necessary, and you have to tend to your ego in a healthy way. But to the structure itself is like, this is why I'm so fascinated by spiritual concepts, for example. And I think this is the key in a nutshell, is when people ask me about, how do you do this creativity? What is creativity, essentially, is the question. And I think this is what psychedelics and many other things really helped me with, is that if you think of most of the religious stories, like let's say Christianity, for example, it starts with, first there was light, so out of nothing becomes everything. Essentially, like the flower of life pattern and the symbol that I use in many of my artworks, it is said that, on a molecular structure way, everything comes into existence through that pattern. So from the one becomes the many. So simultaneously, you will have the one source to everything, and then the absolute plethora of everything. And some people try to make it only one source, or then it's the magnitude of everything. Whereas in reality, it's both of those at the same time, and you have to be comfortable with that paradox. And now, if you look at many of the religions with their birth story of the cosmos, it's about how everything is in birth and death and transcendence all of the time. So the world is creation. It is nothing but creation. But us human beings, with our fragile egos and our sort of limited understanding, we feel often that we're separate from the world. We're not really a part of it. We just sort of pop in here, and then we have to contend with dumb animals and kind of like the blazing sun, and people do shitty stuff to you, and you have to contend with all the bestiality and the predatory nature of the world, and you kind of become very protective, and that layer protects you from being connected and being present with everything that is creation. So what creativity really means is, to me, at this point in time, is that I was at one point far too open and let things come and damage and I was a little bit naive about it. And now it's become more like, I know how to choose when to be open and allow things to come through and try and navigate the things, but then also deal with the fact that the world and God itself is a predatory form of energy as well. It can rip you apart in a hot second. So all of those coming together is somehow the thing that I'm trying to into artworks, that it would somehow have value.
I love it. I think this is so beautiful the way you explained it, because it really this explanation is really duality. It's the expression of the importance of us understanding ourselves. And I love the part where you express really deeply about the channel. So it is really important. I'm writing my book right now about the conscious revival, and it's important that we really go inside on this inner path first. Once we have this inner path, it's very beautiful, because then our creator, source, intelligence, God, whatever you want to call it, comes through you, and then you can decide. And then the final thing that I really can resonate with you, bro, is this piece of naivete, and I think that the world teaches us in such a beautiful way of understanding through our own experiences what it means to really learn how to create boundaries, and the importance of like reflecting our own beautiful expression versus getting projected on through the world's society or point of view, or just the natural source of like trying to squash. Because when we even like the word too open, I don't know, like to me it's like, it's about how can you be really open and then still have those sense of artistic creative settings where you're saying this is for me and this is not for me, because it creates this resonance inside of you. And this reminds me of Aikido. It's this beautiful Japanese art, a flow, martial art, that it learns how to flow with energy, and it actually is. It's more of a dance than a martial. And I think that this is what we allow ourselves to come through once we understand the energy, and it's beautifully done in your work. This is one of your paintings behind you as your banner. Am I correct? This one of
Yeah, I
this
just made it
artwork?
last night. Well,
Yeah.
it's a mixed media piece. It's something that because I started the process of how I jumped into becoming a contemporary artist as opposed to a filmmaker really was that I made these television series about educating people on how to be better with their dogs, and I was working myself to death with my production company, paying the bills. And I really wanted to be Ridley Scott. I wanted to be David Fincher. I wanted to make the next Blade Runner or Gladiator or Fight Club or Seven. You know, those were the things that they had dark themes, but they were these luminous worlds that, you know, were deep psychological explorations into becoming a human being, like to your fullest potential, like I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
And then I found myself in this situation making these television series kind of like that was totally different, and find myself in this small trap of a thing financially with the production company bills. And then I had a sort of crisis of everything, and I realized that, hey, what if I started body painting on people and playing with paint and photographing that paint? I didn't know how to paint really at that point 15 years ago, but I knew that if I put some energy into that thing and I macro photographed those paintings, and the human being would give me this beautiful form, and I could utilize NLP, neuro linguistic programming, to generate a space for a model to allow them to go past themselves and their own fears, and, you know, really do that deep exploration. And if something happened, then I would be taking photographs, and if I collaged them together with Photoshop, maybe I would have something new. And once I found this crazy lady called Sophia, who was the first one to kind of jump on board to kind of co-create this thing together, when I saw those first artworks in front of me, I no longer wanted to be a filmmaker, because I realized that I could do these whole worlds essentially without a crew of 800 people and massive budgets and having to take care of the producers and licensing. And it's like all of this craziness. All of a sudden, I realized that I could just have this expression, and as opposed to being an A-list Hollywood director, I could just be an artist who's doing something unique, and let's see where this goes. But then that led to a lot of trials and tribulations, because, you know, having digital originals, aka files, aka in the eyes of the art world only copies, was a difficult road. But this artwork behind me is a lady that I photographed first nude 2014, and then after this the paint was applied, and then it goes deeper into a process. So these artworks are new. They're a little bit lighter because I'm just taking some of my best nude photography from the years and then applying some paint on top of it to just keep it fun and light and moving. Because most of these artworks, especially from the origin days of what I did, they took from up to 10 days to 2 years to complete them, and they're just very workload heavy in that kind of way. So I'm just exploring different kinds of themes, and this in particular is a crypto themed in a way, because it's called Laser Eyes, because she sort of just started looking like, because there's always these themes in art about the male gaze and the female nude and those kinds of things, and this lady is looking back at you. So
Yeah.
it's always fun to play about with themes like that.
This is it's really beautiful. I think it's really beautiful, and it just really just highlights the creativity that you really have, tying back into this like lightness and darkness. It really brings that together. Tell me about some of this experience, because you really highlighted something about duality that I want to go deeper in your own journey. And so this was something, you know, whether it's, and I think that many artists, many people that follow the heart, many people that need to go down this deeper form, which, you know, ultimately is resilience. You really have to tap into your own sense of darkness and understanding to really then come out onto the other side through the fire and really find that like the veil is really non-existent, but really actually, you know, that's where the light is, right? And so what do you feel for you was like a breaking point as you kind of continued going through? And was there a breaking point that really was like, no, I'm fully taking the commitment, and this is my new identity, you know, this is who I am, this is the character I'm taking on, this is like, there's no holding back, I'm fully committed, and I'm ready to rock?
Well, I don't think I ever had I had such tremendous respect for the name artist that I didn't call myself an artist before I felt like I'd done some real art, which was that moment when when the first artworks on this new process just sort of came through. Even though I'd made music, played multiple instruments, I wrote, directed, shot, edited, I did, and it was these, but it really was about telling stories and giving birth to these worlds. But at the same time, I was contending with my own psychology and my own trauma and all these different kinds of things that were preventing me from stepping out of my own way in many different kinds of ways. And in that journey, I started listening to Ken Wilber and Wayne Dyer, and I discovered all of these amazing teachers who would help me kind of see myself in better light and understanding the psychological traps that I was putting myself into, or where my ego was really in the way. And then, you know, psychedelics were a tremendous help. I mean, they really put me up against a lot of pretty hardcore stuff, and processing, you know, my relationship with my parents, and you know, being bullied in school, and all those kinds of things that, you know, ultimately become like they're like these parasitical things that live inside of you. I mean, everyone who's an artist will contend, well, most people are going to contend with that negative voice with their head, like pretty much most of the time that they're conscious. And then some people try and change the world, and some people go to the gym and try and change themselves. And there's nothing wrong with trying to change the world, but I would say that it's much more constructive most of the time for someone to go to the gym and try to change their own reality first before they attempt to change their outer reality. And I think this is part of the whole thing of why our world is such a mess, is that we now have a lot of people who are not really doing the inner work, or kind of understanding how much grit that they need in order to actually process their own stuff. So they don't just project their own negativity into the world and think that they're a good person in the process, as they're making everyone miserable around them. So maybe those are the kinds of things. And I, like, in general, as much as I enjoy the feminine energy and being surrounded by it and understand the importance of healing and compassion or whatever it is, we also have this unprecedented hatred for masculinity going on at the moment. Like you have some of these characters like Jordan Peterson or Andrew Tate, or many of the ones who are talking about the sort of masculine core and essence and honor and kind of like integrity that is on the inside, that are deliberately slammed and lied about and slandered and whatever, and it's their tone or something that is off in certain different ways, that being masculine is under attack in so many different kinds of ways. And I the more I kind of tap into that masculine core of myself and into that center, also the more creative force I find inside of me. So that there's all these themes that are constantly being battled at, whether it's totally. And it's not like I agree with everything that they're saying. That's not the point. But I totally resonate and love how they're going about the world, trying to find the true path and sticking with it firm no matter what comes. And I think this is a part of how I feel the artistic career has gone as well. There are a lot of things that I've refused to do, and therefore I'm not yet in the millionaire category, whereas other people maybe took an easier way in or out, however you want to say it. And I just feel like if you stand solid with the value that you have created, if you have really created some value, then you should stick by it like you're sticking by your family or your best friend or whatever it is. It's like there are certain things that you just don't sell out, and eventually that price that you pay for it will come back to you.
Absolutely. And I think this is the part where you're sharing is like that integrity piece. It's ultimately the one that allows us to leave this world behind a better place. And you know, this is that masculine edge that we're allowed. And I think too, like there's a lot of masculinity that is toxic, right? It's about being the wound. It's not about being the wounded masculine. It's about being the divine or healed or understood masculine, where we can actually dance with our feminine. Because personally, when I went through the healing of my own masculinity, it was very toxic. It was very wounded. And you're right, you know, you have to go through this personal journey before you're ever able to, you know, it's like we always say, and I think when we had dinner that we were talking about, is like, hey, none of us here need to change the world. Like, let's just like work on ourselves. And then that's why we come together. around this table, sit around, and from that space we can then, together, illuminate a stronger path, right? And this is where the family P comes. This is where like the family starts to resonate. This is where like this is why we're able to stay connected, even being, in opposite sides of the world, is because there's a deeper resonance that's being curated because of the connection that we've created from like a deeper source. And I think
Mm.
that this is something really fascinating, because more of our brothers and sisters around the world, as they kind of go into this expression of themselves first and then out into the world, what do you feel like we're able to contribute as like these trailblazers of maybe the new way of doing things, the new era, the new earth, like Vesa, you and me have traveled the planet, right? We've been around the world, we've done a lot of cool things, and we've built a lot of great expressions. What do you feel like as being a trailblazer, paving the path as we walk it? What do you feel that allows you to do more for the next generation? Because I think you're really contributing to it.
Yeah, sorry, bro. There's just this guy who's, because I'm right next to the parking lot here in this room. There's a guy who's leaving with his motorcycle. Just 2 seconds, because
Can't even hear it.
so
Oh, yeah, it's all good.
it's so super loud. Yeah, so like, yeah, that's a, how would I go about it? Like, that understanding what you were starting to say about the divine masculine and the feminine. I find both of these terms, like now we're starting to have the toxic feminine, because I would even say that we're more in the toxic feminine era right now than we're in the toxic masculine, because you have when I was growing up, when I was a kid and the hormones kicked in, I realized that a lot of the guys were doing their scrapping like this, and girls were doing reputational attacks. So they had this sort of a thing, and now with the rise of the internet, I think even the clinical research is pretty clear, and this is what Jordan Peterson talks about, is that the clinical research is saying that the feminine way of violence really is reputational attacks, and it's these kinds of exclusions and inclusions and those kinds of social games being played. And the internet has really made it more possible than ever before in order for people to be bullied like 24/7 and excluded, included, like all of that kind of stuff. And we see it happening in front of us all the time. And I'm not saying this is only like women doing it. It's many men are doing the same kind of thing. And it's really,
No, because it's the force of the feminine, right? So, and we all have it, right? So it's like
yeah. It's a
part
weapon.
of, yeah.
So, but because David Data was really the guy who I started listening to at the same time. He was the one who really kind of started talking about the divine masculine and feminine when I was in my early 20s, and I really resonated with his books. I think he's got an incredible mind, and I would say that if someone is in their true feminine, or they're in the true masculine, I don't see, like when something is these days described as toxic masculine, I don't see it as masculinity. I see it as immaturity. I think a better thing would be to say that someone's being immature or toxic, rather than saying they're toxic masculinity. Because masculine as a life force, as an energy, there's nothing, I don't see any toxicity about it. Like, I associate it with guys who are slaving themselves to death on these different kind of oil rigs, doing impossible things and building structures and making and taking care of their families and doing whatever. I think that's real masculinity. It's taking responsibility for your life and becoming a part of your society and having your spiritual relationship with your God like in line. And that's the same with women. I think in actually, like, this trailblazing thing probably now to say is a part of saying that there's many women who think that they don't have to work on themselves at all. They're just perfect as they are, and nothing needs to happen in order for them to kind of rise and work their asses off to become their best selves. And I think this is the core of humanity, is that we are born kind of flawed and kind of fallen, kind of shitty and raggedy and all of this kind of stuff. We don't really know anything, and then you have to work hard to maintain your body or your nutrition or your mind and your skills in order to become a person of value. And this is equally difficult to become a person of value for a woman as it is for a man. It's just maybe a different game, or some women are more masculine and they will want to achieve masculine things, and that's their natural energetic core, and they like should be allowed to do that and express themselves and go through their trials and tribulations. What I really just have a problem with is a bunch of very lazy people who don't work with themselves at all, think that they're perfect as they are, which they of course aren't, and then they feel negative, and then they projected that out into the world. And maybe a lot of the people who they're criticizing, they're actually envious of, as opposed to, rather than trying to make them better human beings. So it's this interesting dance that is going on, like on multiple levels. And I'm all for women's empowerment, like all of these different kinds of things. That's what my art really has been about, is to create those spaces where people can let go of things and become their best selves, to become these art beacons of what it is that our potentially actually allows us to be. But especially in the spiritual communities earlier on, when I did a bunch of different kinds of discoveries and whatever it is, I found this, what they call spiritual bypassing, or I found this kind of a thing that you don't have to look at your own darkness. You don't have to look at the Jungian shadow to kind of, it's all about just light and love and whatever and this kind of thing. And I just found bullshit, man. No, if you got to do the work. I think that's how the cosmos operates, is that you have to do the work and you have to show up and you have to have enough courage to face yourself, or otherwise you're going to be delusional about what it is that you think is valuable about you.
Amazing. This darkness part is something that I really resonate deeply with. The one thing I want to challenge, I do think that we come into this world not flawed. I think we come to this world perfect, and that's where that's why like this perfection is part of the duality. And to me, it's about all of the projections that the world has either given to our parents or our grandparents or our ancestries. And then it's a responsibility for us to get curious. And I think that this is like the beautiful part of, like, you're right, not spiritual bypass, because if we do bypass any of that darkness, we're not doing any favors for our children or our children's children. And so I think that this is something that we as a new generation, right? We're very similar in age, you and I, have discovered consciously. And I think that our parents, our grandparents were very unconscious to these patterns, right? I mean, you look at just historical propaganda, right? And the repeatable cycles that have been delivered over centuries, and through the economy, through war, through, communication. And it's just been cycles of the same, the same things happening centuries at a time. And so it's, I think, because of what we're become aware of, right? Because we haven't bypassed, because the old generation has been so focused on bypassing these things, right? On like, we'll just leave it, whatever, we'll just not work on it. But our generation, I think, brother, we're focused on, we've come to this time, to come in this perfection of this duality and saying, hey, we're actually going to do the work. We're gonna do the work. And we're not going to pass on the things that our parents or grandparents or our ancestors have passed on to us. Of course, we're going to pass on other things. We always have some sort of unconscious awareness. However, we are so focused on this mindset of, this heart set of integrity, of this masculinity that you so beautifully described as not immature. And I really feel that it's our duty now to contribute our energies in such a beautifully divine flow of expressing, of sharing, of holding that space of compassion and truth, so that the other immature masculine and feminine can really come to light and say, hey, I didn't know what I was doing, but it's only because we were willing to step up, bro, and say, hey, we also didn't know. right? And I think this is cool, like with your vulnerability about spreading about the being naive or uncertain, because same, like, bro, I still, I'm uncertain about a lot of things. But one thing that we can all capture together as leaders and in influence is this willingness to have certainty about our own selves, our own path. We don't need to be certain about what's out there, but having this certainty within ourselves is the most beautiful way that we can all express together. So really defining our nature, our true nature, and what it means to start building a new community, a new family, a new era, trailblazing, and doing all of this. It really sounds to me, and what I'm hearing is like it's about holding a space. It's about being able to stand in a room and being comfortable with who you are, with your identity.
Definitely, and courage. Courage is the one really kind of like consistent thing that keeps coming up. And just to go back a little bit, just to clarify what I mean about how we come into this world a little, because at the same time we're this divine spark. I mean, you look at a baby that's come into the world. I'm not saying it's like incomplete as a human being. No,
No, I
that's
didn't
when
think
you're
you were,
still.
but yeah,
No, but
I think,
let me explain. What I
yeah,
tried to
please.
say is that
Sorry.
you have this divine spark, but when you come into this world, you also can't walk. You can't feed yourself. You can't do anything. You can't build a house. You can't drive a car. You can't, like, all of these things you have to actually learn in order to become. And essentially, as we go along and you start trading cards or you start whatever, then you start to realize that everyone else has their own reality. And unless if you're somehow contributing to their reality and they contribute back in a nice way, it's not going to be a sustainable thing. And then you learn at the same time that some people are just out there to fuck you over because they're jealous or they want to get one up on you, or that's their ego, that's their, all of these different kinds of things are going to come into your shaking thing. So what I'm because yeah, maybe our parents' generation, they weren't like hugging, they weren't understanding, they weren't honoring that divine spark in them, but what they were doing a little bit more than what we are doing at the moment to our children is this kind of like, yeah, it's a pretty tough world out there, kid, and you better like get your shit together in order to be a part of it, or otherwise you're going to be run over. So they were a little bit better at that, but they weren't honoring that part that is the divine spark. But now it's swung the other way. Now it's more like this, everyone gets a trophy, whilst on the inside, and especially young boys, like if everyone gets a trophy, they're going to know that this is bullshit. And if the other team won, but you also are winners even though you lost, I think that it swung this way, and ultimately it would be beautiful if we can have that balance where you can look at a kid, if it's yours, and you can say, you are a beautiful spark of God, you are absolutely amazing, there's nothing that can ever shake my love for you. And whilst we're on this subject, you really suck at this and you need to get better at it, or otherwise you're going to get run over. If there is this beautiful balance that you would get from usually maybe the other side from the mother and maybe the other side from the father, but I don't think there's anything in our way anymore for us to become the full men, and in our capacity to do that thing mutually. We can express the feminine or the nurturing side, and we can express the challenging, because both of them are coming actually from the same place of love, really, if it's integrated into your system.
100%.
And that's part of the shadow thing.
I think this is, and I think this is something that is very important in our parents. Something that I can definitely share that is so important. My parents, I love them, and I think that this is a big part of expression, and this is the power that our parents give us. There's so much trauma, but there's also so much gifts, right? Like, and we also need to like look at that. And I think that you really touched on a huge part there, is like recognizing the gifts, recognizing that the gifts have been given to us by our parents and our ancestry as well. And so it's important to unlearn some things, but it's also really important to remember the foundations. And that is something that I really personally am going to take away from this, because like as you're saying that, I'm really recognizing my mother and my father and the power that they've given me in their own little ways, but the way they dance with each other and me observing that has been such a really curious philosophy of the way that they are with each other. And with the way that they are with each other has given me this ability to dance with my own masculine and feminine, and because they're able to dance with each other's. And so it's given me this balance, so to speak, because it's really identifying. So it's like you're really resonating at a deeper level as you're speaking about it, and you're helping me curate this like anchor. You know, whether it was unconscious or conscious at one point, right now it's about bringing the light to it. And I think that that's so beautiful, because how many of us, when we're listening to something, are we actually philosophizing and being so present to it that it's actually hitting us in the heart in the moment? And so I think that so many times we're at these events, whether, you know, you're speaking or I'm speaking or somebody else is speaking on stage, and we're not really present. So my thing is now, I always talk about this piece of presence and this importance of it. And so as we're learning from other people, right, and really, like you said, we're bringing two people together to be listening and curious enough about another map of the world, right? And then as you say, it's like, hey, let's hold space for each other. What do you feel is the importance here of listening in a world where we're inundated with so many different attentions and things that are happening around us, that we're actually it's like it doesn't exist. It's very like distracted kind of society now.
Well, I'll tell you something deeply personal, actually, because I can talk about this a little better now, because I've come out of it to a certain degree. But like holding space, for example, this happened because I'm married now, and we've been together with my wife Lotta for 9 years nearly.
Please
And,
give her my best.
yeah, definitely. So, but what happened to us a little bit over a year ago is that our son was stillborn, and that was unimaginably horrific, the moment when I realized that this boy that I'd been waiting for a long time to come and join us, because we had a miscarriage before that in an early stage before it, so it was something that was quite traumatic already in the background. And then the day that we went to the hospital, we were actually turned away. The heartbeat was there and everything, and the nurse just said that we're not ready to come in yet. And then 2 days later, then, you know, because we weren't really given any instruction on how and when then to come back, and we thought that we had already fulfilled that and when we should be coming back. And then when we came back and realized that the baby no longer had a heartbeat, and after that, because it was already 3 days of a grueling sort of birth exercise before then. And then, well, we had to be with the awareness that for 24 hours before actually we tried to get the dead baby to be born out of her, for 24 hours before the C-section happened finally. And it was such a brutal, horrific experience that I was in a fog for about a whole year. But I realized that and this speaks to the masculine core as well, is like, it was a month and a half after this happened that I was already back on an airplane to come to Dubai to speak on a main stage and present some art and do other things, because I realized that I couldn't really hold space for my wife in a way that I was emotionally completely there with her, like going through all of the emotions, and at the same time keep my shit together in order to prevent other disasters like financial disasters or these opportunities that we would have worked so hard for in order for them to still manifest. So I came to Dubai, and right after that, there was this Brittany Kaiser production, like a crew of 20 people from all over the place who were coming to Finland to do this production with us. And then for a full year, when I could have my own sorrow, or I could have my interactivity with the pain that I was going through, she tried to be there, but to a limited capacity. So we assumed these roles that she healed herself for a full year, trying to process everything and you know, all of this kind of stuff. And I was trying to hold everything together around us, because actually before this happened, it was 8 weeks. No, it wasn't even that. It was like 3 weeks before this birth, our dog died as well. So it was just so such a devastation all along. And then during the summer now, I had some time to kind of like take time off and heal myself a little bit and kind of confront all of this stuff. But I was deeply disappointed in some sense in my disability to be able to be there emotionally to support my wife. But I also realized that I couldn't do both. I couldn't hold a space for us, like not to have the outer destruction happen if I was to do that. And luckily her family, my family, they helped, and there was a psychiatrist that helped, and many other people came as a group to help that whole thing come together. But holding space, I think I fulfilled my masculine role in order to protect my family and keep that thing in line. But it was, I don't know to which degree it was or wasn't a disappointment to my wife that I couldn't be simultaneously an emotional support for her that much, or process my own grief simultaneously as that was happening. So, and this is what I mean about a lot of the sort of social justice warrior kind of thing that is going on. And I'm not stranger to that myself. I've done many different kinds of cause art projects and these kinds of things. And while I think you should really be as effective and good at being your best self and help things go along and help other people and these great ideas to manifest, I think this is a part of the modern discussion that we miss, is that life is brutal, and it's always been brutal. It's not only been about our engineering and our wars and human flaws and whatever it is. For us to contest with nature, like we're in this top hospital in the world where the death rate of babies is absolutely none. It's almost like it doesn't ever happen, but it just happened to us. You know, there's things can just flip on a second. And like this ancient apocalypse, this series of what this whole thing is and why the ancient civilizations we're so focused in the sky. And what Graham's theory is that, you know, for decades and decades it was raining down meteorites onto Earth that wiped everything out of existence basically 12,000 years ago. So we're contending with these forces of nature that seemingly really don't give a shit about us, and we might have a personal relationship with God, but if it's the time of the meteor storm, you best believe it that most things are going to be wiped out, and all of a sudden you're in this nuclear winter. So we're here to help each other, we're here to process all of these things. But I think, you know, we've become far too concentrated on this sort of human interactivity and what our personal flaws and these kinds of things are, as opposed to understand that we're also here to contend with nature as well as our own nature. And it's not the world is not a hospitable place. And to bring it home into some sort of a bigger context, and what I find so beautiful about spirituality is also that, you know, this is a place that is not meant to be fixed. It's not meant to ever be, because if I observe it, most of the time, if I fix something here, something's going to start leaking over there. Right? Then I fix that, and two other things are going to, you know, it's like, it feels like this is a place where a soul comes to test themselves in order to contest with all of these problems and overcome, you know, whatever it is. And then maybe you deserve a place to go to a better plane or something like that, which is a major theme in these religions and whatever. And I think, you know, this is also helpful with regards to the coming generations, that I hope that I will have these kids eventually, when we now are going to try again at some point, is that I think I now have this understanding that I'm not meant to fix the world for this kid, because it's never going to be fixed. What I'm meant to be doing is tooling themselves to understand with the best ability that they're here now to contest with their souls and with the world, and they're going to face different problems that I'm going to face with. But they can have the emotional support, they can have the psychological strength, and they can have the understanding of how they would be the best equipped to go through their own soul journey. And this, I think if we have this kind of a perspective to this world, that it's a school for the soul, it's not meant to ever become utopia, then, you know, I think we're more in line with the reality of what this place really is, the Maya, the great illusion.
I love it. So magical the way you put it, dude. It really is an important part of acceptance, of surrender. That's what I'm seeing, you know. It's like you have this beautiful ability to see the importance of your own surrender, and as a result you're allowing things to come through you and discover and say, hey, you know, it's like, it is our school. 100%, this great mirror, right? And what can we offer with our own soul journey to, really enhance our own experience, so that the people around us, we're reflecting back something that is identifying, that's really near and dear to our heart. And our children are really going to be the highlight of that, and we can only do the best that we can, you know what I mean? Like, and I think that this is something, I always resonate with. I really believe that we're all doing the best that we can in our own nature. Whether some of us agree with each other or not is really their, a person's perspective. But I do believe that, based off people's understanding of their own maps of the world, or the way they see the point of view, they're doing the best they can for themselves, and as a result, for the people around them. And I think that is, that's where the spiritual bypass comes in, or it doesn't come in. And as a result, we get to then pass that on. And you're right. I think there's a huge part where people think that, that everything needs to be fixed. But this is going back now to the duality, to recognizing that that's how you start to see the good only comes if you can see, or the light only comes if you can see the dark. It's like, it's the magic, it's the beauty, it's the expression of both that allows us to see it, right? The contrast. And so I think that this is a huge part, right? When you're painting the picture, when you're the artist, right? If you start seeing yourself as you come into this world as with like a blank canvas, what are we doing to really curate the best picture for ourselves, right? And as a result, for doing that for ourselves, our lives will be a byproduct of leaving a legacy, and this is the way that I think that we can enhance the artistic expression that is ideally all of our expression that we've contributed to the one kind of world that we live in. Brother, tell me, okay, because first of all, I love talking to you, because I always knew there's this deep spirit inside of you, and it's so amazing to like really explore that, because I don't know if sometimes you get to share this depth as much as
No, not very often, bro. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. This is such a
Yeah.
refreshing conversation, because most of the time, the art here is perceived all around the world, really. Most people think that art is now only subjective. They have this super postmodern, like this kind of thing. And while Dubai and the Emirates, for example, very well, this is an incredible place with such beauty and all this kind of thing. They don't actually, in Dubai, you can study a lot of art from different kinds of programs and different private schools and things like that, but they don't actually have a national education program for the arts or crafts or hand, made things and things like that. For the 24,000 schools in the Emirates, it doesn't really exist. So like you said at the very beginning of this conversation, art is a language. It's really something that you can speak, and it speaks to you, and it transmits something, and that's the conversation that you really have with art. And one part of the challenge of doing that here in the Emirates is that it's on a foundational level kind of missing as a part of the culture. And I think in the West altogether, if you compare it to, let's say, legacy Italy or something like that, there's this fantastic professor called Camille Paglia, who's this cultural critic and a machine gun of a lady. Just incredible intellect, but someone who definitely rubs a lot of people in the wrong way, because her tone is not soft. It's like she will let you hear it. But she has, again, it's one of these things. Is like, to me, it's not so important what your tone is if I can sense that your purpose is beautiful and constructive and good. And she's one of those people, and she talks about the Italian Renaissance, of how art belongs to everyone, for example, that it's really from the peasant to the king, it's a part of everyone's lives as a part of the aesthetic and the language and understanding. And it's something that we've really lost in the West, I think, altogether. And what I'm attempting to do, because most of these conversations here, like you said, I'm doing these art cars and rapping jets and all of these glamorous and glitzy things and going, and that's one part of the conversation. But they're really just to, in one way, a patch to try and help people to kind of allow themselves to look at it more deeply, to go into deeper conversations about them. But I'm no longer so naive that I think that this level of conversation, of depth, that you could probably read in an artwork without me saying it, for most people that doesn't actually transmit. And it's one of the backward things about our era right now is that you look at, for example, the NFT scene. You'll have some monkey pictures that are the most valuable artworks ever, and it's like these very average or even below average things are being lifted as something that we should really look at because they are so expensive. And it's a misconstrued sort of value argument altogether, and it's confusing everyone. And no wonder people are so lost and depressed and you know fucked off, because you're just being bombarded by valueless things essentially that you're meant to praise as this high thing. And Jordan Peterson actually was one who beautifully described the Michelangelo statue, the Pieta, and this really resonates now with my recent sort of kind of events as well, is that it's this statue. So you have Mary, who's holding Jesus in his arms, like beautifully sculpted out of marble, like this masterpiece that you just don't understand how someone can do that when you're in front of that statue. And really what the statue is about is how a mother has to do this journey of knowing that you're going to give birth to a son. He's going to die and suffer and be ill and be betrayed and all of these terrible things that happen. You suffer pains, whatever, disease, all these kinds of things, as well as the beautiful, the love and the transcendent and the amazing experiences. But ultimately, there's going to be a lot of pain involved, and then you're going to die. And this is what you're giving birth to, is this being who's going to go through all of these different kinds of things. And despite all of the horrific things, still chooses to have that child and give it to the world and do your best in order to be a parent about it. And then, so this is part of the core of art, is like, whether it's in these ancient structures and temples, the craftsmanship that they put together, like the Great Pyramid of Giza, all the, like, what's gone into that whole thing. I'm not going to even go into that because there's better people to explain it, but it's such an incredible rabbit hole and trip to understand what it is that they could craft and give these experiences of awe and tradition and knowledge and passed along. And this is more what the artwork and these experiences were about. And now it's like, it can be a shoe on a pedestal in a gallery, and that could cost $1 million because someone's doing a marketing campaign, you know. And I just think that we're losing our path and watering down the word art into something that can then be like a monkey picture now, or these kinds of things, is really detrimental to our souls, and something that really, I can't see a world keeping itself together with these kinds of values. If everything is art, or if everything is money, then nothing is money. And there's clear paths on how we can evaluate it, but it's a little bit of a peculiar situation altogether. But that's the side of the, I'm not saying none of these projects shouldn't be. I'm saying all of it, fantastic, you know, have at it, do whatever. But I'm saying that there's something profoundly skewed in our values, that a lot of what I see to be brilliant art, or trying to do something that is of true value, that can withstand centuries, and people could look at it and then go like, that's in line with universal truth, and I understand more of my humanity, and we were actually the same kinds of human beings 5,000 years ago as we are now psychologically in some sense. And while looking at this art, all of a sudden this 5,000 years collapses away, and I feel a part of this artist and what they were trying to say. You know, that to me is real art, whether it can actually transcend time and space in order to have something of value that it transmits forever. And that's the side of the argument I want to hold. And I think if we more support that kind of a thing, and that's more of what we admire, then we have a chance of society not losing its mind entirely, which to me, especially the West, it looks like it's very close to doing so. And,
I agree.
and
Disillusion.
so, yeah, it's like
I
the
mean,
great collapse.
yeah,
And we're pretending like it's not happening. And you're like,
boom,
kind
that's
of
it.
clear, bro.
No, and I think that this brings me, before we end, to a very important part, because, you know, you and me love Dubai, we love the Emirates, we think that there's a lot of greatness that's being created there on a very progressive forefront, and they really are in part of inclusion and tolerance and support and dynamics. And I think that, it's been given, even before I went there, it's been given a bad kind of name, of, especially in different places in the world, the West primarily, hey, oh, you got to be worried and stuff like this. And I think that this type of fear-based or this type of separation, disillusion, whether it's monetary or facades or religion or any of these type of dynamics, is a way to really create more separation. And I think that you bring a really good point, especially using art as a way of like, hey, like, where are the values that completely bind us together, that the values us as humanity bring us as this international global family. And so I'd love to get your perspective on what Dubai is doing right now for you. What are you creating in Dubai, and where are you kind of seeing your direction go in the next let's say 6 to 12 months?
Brilliant question, and really resonate with how you frame it as well. Because a lot of the people who are now critiquing many things that are here, and I'm not saying it's perfect, definitely not. I mean, it has its things, and to a certain degree, depending on how vigilantly someone is, like with Islam, it does feel a little constrictive in some sense, in a religious sense of how free it has been in the West and in Finland and many other things. But now many of those people who are critiquing what is gone over here, I don't think they have much credibility in terms of how they've looked at their own stuff at the moment. And what I would say is why this place feels so together still is that the religion and the spiritual side is really respected and honored, and it's okay. You can be whatever religion you are over here. It's not frowned upon if you're not whatever it is that you are. But I think people just more have this appreciation that if you have some sort of an alignment with the universal, there's more self-accountability. There's more like this thing that you're in line with life somehow, and you're striving to be your best. And people, the kind of constructive entrepreneurial energy people are building over here, things, it's clear in the energy that it's, in some sense, the Western mind would say it's not as free, but a part of that constraint actually in here manifests into something that is a lot more safe of an atmosphere, and I think a lot more sanity, and a lot more something that I feel that I can easily be a part of and resonates with me. This is really part of Dubai, is this whole idea of this beautiful oasis that comes out of nothing. It's in the middle of the desert that is all of a sudden like this Las Vegas luxury thing, this beautiful pearl that they built over here. And that kind of impossibility to contest with that force that you really are in the desert. If things don't work and you're here in the middle of the summer and the aircon doesn't work, you're screwed. Like that, and that kind of relationship that people have with their surroundings and how to make things happen, and how you have to come together to work together in order to have those greater parts come to a new existence. That's really the essence of my creativity. That's why these art cars or the yachts and the jets and now these villas that we want to print on marble and porcelain to transform different structures into more beauty and awe. Essentially, this is just the place where to be, and those people that are building that kind of thing. There's certain aspects of the Western postmodernism that needed to happen as conversations. They really needed to be a part of the lexicon of the people, but I think it went overboard in a way where everything just feels like it's being pulled apart and picked apart, and anyone trying to do anything is all of a sudden, no, but this then happened, and this injustice or this whatever, and you can't really get anything off the ground before your feet are already kind of cut off. And I think this is you have to individually assess what is the place for you, but it certainly has been a school for me for the past 2 years to come here with my preconceived notions of what this place is, with an open mind, but I still had the idea that this might not work or this might be different or whatever it is. And during the 2 years to kind of come into contact with such humility and such grace and kind of people building and helping and having this kind of spirit together to build stuff, I'm like, I'm home. I really don't miss going back to Finland, because it's the opposite over there. It just feels like everything is in decline and it's for a good cause. And I'm going like, dude, so maybe that's it. This is just home for us for now. And really, I can't wait to soon go hit this conference and meet a bunch of people who are, again, building something incredible probably, and I've never heard of it. So, so
And
you're missed over here as well.
about
So please
ideas
come
and
back soon.
creativity. You know, everybody's talking about ideas, creativity. This is what I really loved and resonated. There's a lot of like creative minds wanting to think about, hey, like what can we do to make things, you know, different and enhanced and creative and collaborative. And, you know, I think this is a beautiful, abundant mindset, which I really can see. I mean, every place has their, you know, like we said, this duality, but it's about really finding that within yourself first. And then as a result, when you go to any place around the world, whether it's Dubai or, you know, Europe or North America, you're going to resonate with the people that vibrate at the same level that you're at. So this is something I think that everybody needs to pay attention to as well. Brother, I know we're a little bit over time. I have if you had 3 days left to live, what would you do?
Wow, okay. I'd have to get real present. What a curveball of a question. I think I'd put a lot of things in line. I mean, like with regards to what I've been building with this art stuff is a legacy. It's something that is meant to be a map for people to discover something of value to them. And I just make sure that, you know, whatever is left somewhere, where all of the artworks are, whatever, to make sure that my wife could be the one that is the custodian of all of this stuff, that all of that is in line. I'd probably spend a full day at the very least making sure that all the things are in line and as easy to be transferred over as possible. And then the rest would be probably making sure that I'm with the people that I love as much and as present as possible, and kind of like sharing whatever is left of the existence. But I think altogether, because I've due to this journey being so incredibly difficult with art and everything, I've nearly lost my life twice in the whole process, and my health and things like that. And because of psychedelics and things, I'm not really afraid of death. I wouldn't like freak out. It's not something that would like really, well, obviously it'd be devastating, like to know the time and that it's that short. No, I thought I had more time, and or whatever. But I think I've lived in a way that I've given it as much as I can most of the time. So I think death is only really scary if you haven't given it your all, because you're disappointed in your own potential as opposed to whatever. And I think this is one part that I have done in this kind of sense, that I've really put all into the game, and as much as time as I have left over here, I'll keep continuing to do the same.
Amazing. Brother, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciated this amazing, you know, conversation, tremendous insight. If anybody wants to know more about you, how they can find you, find your work, connect with you, where can they look you up?
Sure. But before that, I really want to honor you and thank you for this moment. It was really lovely. And like to say it again, I don't get to often talk about this stuff on this level, so it's very, very appreciated, man. So good stuff.
Appreciate you, bro. Thank you.
So artforcrypto.com is one site. It's at Art by Vesa on Instagram and Twitter, if people want to find me that way and kind of start looking at the art stuff. All the body painting works and those kinds of things, I compiled a website called artevo.org, artevo.org, like earlier, and there you can find a lot of the previous stuff. So I'm going to compile it all onto one website. But you know, there's this 7-minute video clip actually on artforcrypto.com, very at the beginning phase, that kind of goes through the 15 past years of digital craziness and creativity, if anyone wants to check that out. And any feedback and all that kind of stuff is super appreciated, because, you know, it helps me evolve as well. But yeah, that's really it.
Amazing, brother. Thank you so much for coming on the show again. And I look forward to seeing you in Dubai real soon.
Come back, bro.
Yeah.
I miss you.
Hey everyone, and thank you so much for listening to the Resilient Minds. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please make sure to go comment and like and follow us on iTunes or Spotify, and please make sure that if you really love this, to share this episode, and make sure that you're inviting all your friends to like it as we continue to unfold what the beauty of our minds does. More importantly, how powerful our heart level of intelligence can be when we combine our heart and our brain together. And more importantly, check out the alignment course that I've created. It's seriously there for you to take advantage of at www.ericbalance.com/alignment. See you on the next show.